Race matters. Race matters in language learning. Race matters in our field of, applied linguistics and second language acquisition. Race matters in language teaching. And it is fundamentally important to understand that if you're going to deal with Black people and have Black students and you are in any way concerned about how they're negotiating this whole language learning thing and how they're dealing with the personal transformation that language learning entails. So race is extremely important, not to say that African Americans or Black people in general, and that our brains are built differently somehow and we cognitively process language or learn in different ways. No, it's to say that our experiences as Black people and in Blackness is so singular and it's so unique that we are going to have experiences in language learning or whatever endeavor that we're in that are very singular and unique, and they need to be examined from this perspective of our Blackness and how Blackness influences what it is that we do. So if you look at language learning as what it is, which is socialization into new ways of learning and doing and being, right, in language and in culture, and all of that is inextricably mixed. You're talking about identities. You're talking about, first and foremost, interaction. And language learning, and let's say success in language learning, is all about interactions, right? And if you look at Blackness, Blackness gives you either opportunities in interaction, or it determines how you move about and get interacted with. So if you are looking at somebody's experience in language learning, especially a Black person, you have to talk about and think about how are they participating, what affordances do they have for participation, how are they integrating, how are they interacting, and you cannot ignore race, and you certainly cannot ignore Blackness in all of that. So this is what my work shouts every day, and I try to shout along with it, that race matters profoundly. And you can also look at it in the language learning experiences that other people have and other racial groups have. And you can look at the affordances that whiteness provides, for example, in study abroad experiences or just in classroom-based language learning opportunities and experiences for white students. And when we stop treating them as sort of the default individual who are raceless somehow, and when we understand that their experience of not being, let's say, stigmatized racially is a racial experience, and their experience of not having to think so explicitly about race is itself a racial experience, we have to then look at the importance of race first and foremost in language learning, and by extension, when you look at the language learning experiences of Black people, the importance of considering Blackness in language learning. Anti-Blackness is the notion that Black people don't have a language. This idea of Black languagelessness, right? And it's very directly tied to racism and stigma against Black people. So this notion that African-American language is some sort of bastardized English, that you're not really speaking, English correctly, and we're going to have to, first of all, teach you English so you can be, right in that area before we can even dare teach you somebody else's language. So this is an extremely racist perspective because of the notion that just because you're speaking Black language, that number one, you're not speaking a real language, and number two, you need remediation. And therefore, there's no space for you in world language learning because we can't accommodate you. So African Americans are stigmatized heavily in especially prestige programs in world language, like immersion programs and dual language programs that require you to just do your regular academic curriculum in another language that perhaps you don't speak at home, right? So This is a prestige opportunity. This is usually a track in a regular public school that is a special track that you get more teacher attention, smaller classrooms, and, we can fight about this all day or not, but it's been fully recognized that there are very many cognitive benefits to bilingualism and multilingualism, and people recognize this, and they're fighting for it desperately to have their children have these opportunities. Yet, Black students are shut out of these classes or these programs under benevolent racism. The poor dear pity pedagogy racism, in that, sweetheart, you don't do English all that well. We have to help you out with that and work on that. And we don't want to tax you too much and burden your little Black brain too much by giving you extra languages to account for, when you don't even speak English right. So this is what African Americans face in being shut out of programs because of this notion that they're languageless in the first place, therefore they can't do other languages. There's also this perception that language study is something that's for, a highly intellectual person or, a more intellectual pursuit. And it's something that, multilingualism, for example, is seen as a marker of brilliance, and which has a lot to do with who the multilingual is. We know that because we have a lot of bilingual and multilingual Black children and other children of color who it's a problem that they're multilingual and not this thing to be proud of and envy and wish your child could do. So we understand that, and we treat language classes or language learning as this intellectual pursuit that we simply don't think African Americans are capable of, and they should do some more practical things and not concern themselves with these more high intellectual pursuits. And once again, nobody explicitly says all this, right? People don't do racism all that openly, except online, but it's still happening. However, how they do it is, like Aris talked about, through administration and through placement and through the teachers that have these assumptions, these very damaging deficit beliefs about the abilities of Black students and Black children. And it's distinctly and very clearly directly connected to the stigma that we have against specifically African Americans and Black people in general, and thinking of them as less than. And when you think of somebody as less than, you're not going to put them in programs and situations that are considered a little bit more. And then afterwards, you talk about their achievement gaps, when it's really an opportunity gap, and it's an accommodation gap, and it's plain old racism and anti-Blackness.